Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Intercultural Conversations. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to this one because, as the post had mentioned about this episode, in any other life, I know that I would definitely have been a dancer. So, yeah, this means something special to me as well. And as you can see, I have a multi-equipment setup now. There is a certain light on me, and I think this is going to just get bigger and better, hopefully. And I'm just gonna wait for a couple of more people to join in. Hi Raj, hi Uvi, hi Doel. So, just to give you some context for today's episode, right, at the risk of sounding cliche, I know for a fact that dance and movement can transcend across cultures, and I know that sounds very cliche, but I also speak this out of experience because I myself come from a culture where we dance for anything and everything, right? So maybe it may be a joyous occasion, it could be a celebration, sometimes even death, and we are moving and we are dancing. So it definitely holds some meaning for me in that sense. And I've often wondered why, the word art and culture is usually said in one breath, because any form of art, and that includes dance, has such a huge impact on culture and the way we think and the way we weave into social settings, right? So I have actually already done an interview with a Yakshagana dancer. Yakshagana is a traditional dance from Karnataka, and it's extremely religious and spiritual as well. And you can check out that episode too. It's with Advika Shetty. So I've had a much more traditional perspective on what dance means for cultures and what dance means from a very traditional perspective. But I wanted to understand from a contemporary dancer, especially a contemporary movement artist who has interacted with various cultures, and what are the experiences and learnings that come out of that, right? And it's also to get a much more modern understanding of how dance can affect our thinking or our perspectives. So definitely our next guest was the perfect person to have this conversation with. Today I will be joined by Patryk, and Patryk actually started off his early career as a footballer, and then he found love in martial arts, and that's why he also fell in love almost with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Capoeira. And that's where he found kind of his voice as an artist and as a movement artist especially. He was fortunate enough to work with artists such as Jenny Ocampo, Sergio Mattis, Maya Carroll, and study with teachers such as Martin Kilvari and Shai Farhan, to name a few. Currently, Patryk is working with the Alexander Van Ternout's Dance and Circus Company in Brussels. And this is the coolest part, right? He's also created or developed, or teaching rather, his own practice that combines his experience of martial arts and partnering, and he calls this grappling. So yeah, it's such a rich background of movement in general, but also dance and the kind of people that he has collaborated in the past with. But apart from that, he's also been traveling in India, and he's been teaching and learning different dance forms as well. So that also makes this discussion richer. And without further ado, with my perfect lighting, yes, Doel, I'm going to be welcoming Patryk Kos. Pronunciation right. So I will not take any criticism about this pronunciation. Hey, Patryk.
Hey,
Did I pronounce your name right?
say again?
Did I pronounce your name correctly? Patryk quoi?
Yes, you did. Hey,
I'm
how's it going?
getting there. Give me 15 more years, and I'll be pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, it's better than
How are
most.
you, Patryk? So yeah, there are quite a few people have joined in. Thank you everybody for joining in, and thank you, Patryk, for taking the time to do this.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine.
Okay, so I'm gonna start. I'm gonna dive right into it, right?
Okay.
Um, I'm not gonna start with a very cross-cultural or an intercultural question. I'm not gonna do that right away because I want to set some context about what dance means to you and what dance me or movement means to you in general. So yeah, um, what does dance mean to you? And in your opinion, what do you think it brings to the world?
Um, wow.
Yes, I always start off with heavy questions, and that's why people don't come for intercultural conversations. Don't do that to me. But yes.
So, yeah, it's a big question to unveil, but I think it's hard to answer like without giving a lot of context. Um,
We're looking for,
because
so that's good.
yeah, I definitely didn't. So I didn't grow up um, learning dance, like I
Mm-hmm.
guess in sort of a traditional sense. That I didn't go as a kid to ballet classes, and I wasn't also exposed to any folk dance or actually none of that. I mean, I had a very physical background in that I was playing a lot of sports since a kid. And I guess, there's so that part of wanting to be physically active and wanting to somehow get the energy out in some way or the other through the body was always there. But it wasn't
Mm.
only until sort of my early 20s that I have um, kind of maybe dropped the sports, found martial arts, and found sort of more this movement ideology or ideas, and that kind of led also more into dance. And I guess in dance, what I found was some kind of a some kind of a complete idea of using the body, to put that energy that you have somewhere physically, but
Mm.
also actually go somehow more in depth and see what that movement maybe means, or what is stored in the body that maybe is not so easy to access consciously just by thought. So
Mm.
so I guess that big revelation for me in dance was that there's a way to access things through movement that are otherwise, at least to me, obviously talking from my perspective, were somehow not available, never accessed, or not thought to be possible to access. See, like I had a very profound experience in the very beginning of the journey where in an improvisation class, we did a kind of a movement exchange with someone. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like a partner exercise, and we had to come up with certain movements, and then these, just by doing a simple movement, like a lot of emotions and thoughts and memories came up that I, at first I got afraid, fear came up and some kind of freeze in the body, and it was the first experience for me, so it was very overwhelming, and I kind of cut that off, and then after the class I was like, okay, I want to go back to it, let me think, and I couldn't go back to it with my thoughts, and that was sort of it opened up sort of a door for me, an understanding that there are certain things stored in the body um, that are not accessible by the mind, but are possible
Mm.
to sort of to dig into through movement, dance, or sort of an experience in dance. And
Yeah. So you definitely think that that is something not only as a dancer helps you, but you would also probably go ahead and suggest that people in general who find it difficult to access that within themselves can probably much more easily find it through movement and dance. So that's what, for you, movement and dance brings to the world.
yeah, definitely. I also think, all this sort of parties and dancing in the clubs and together and, movement. I mean, movement not in a sense of sort of like rich vocabulary and doing, some kind of crazy tricks and pirouettes, whatever, but like even, like how many people go to clubs or to parties and they have an experience by being with other people and by moving their body most of the time to some music. And maybe even unconsciously they bring out some kind of euphoria, some kind of ecstatic experience, some kind of something that is not so easy to grasp and explain, but something that draws you back again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
So I think this
I speak out of personal experience also. I've often said that even if it's loud music and you are in a communal space and you are dancing to it, it's almost like a meditative experience.
Yeah.
Right? Even though you're dancing on your own, but you're surrounded by people, it's the energy. And yes, it's inexplicable, but it's like a high.
Yeah.
You want to go back.
Yeah.
You want to go back again and again.
And
that's true.
And it's also something, that it's one of the few things I think that across cultures, across universes, I would argue, is anybody, like as soon as you start sort of moving the body, not even walking, like there is a rhythm from your heart, from sort of from the internal organs, there's some kind of rhythm, and you always somehow, whether you call it dance or not, you always sort of like move and experience everything through the body, so this is something that in any culture kind of exists. And anybody with like anybody, literally anybody, can move or try to express something with their body, whether it's to music or not. And I think this is, one of the very few things that is really connecting people across globe, across everything.
Yeah. Patryk, you said with music or not, and that for me, as an Indian person or as a person who's learned Kathak dancing, is a bit debatable. Because for me, the way I perceive dance or movement in general has always been on rhythm or some kind of music, or if not music, but at least rhythm, So even when you're learning Kathak, you're tapping your feet on the floor in order to create a sound. And for me, then I can't relate. It's just me. It's my cultural bias, I believe, or just my bias as a person.
Yeah.
That I can't relate dancing without music. And then, that was supposed to be my next question for you, actually. So you have been traveling across India, and you've traveled also to Brazil to learn Capoeira and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And you've interacted with dancers here as well. So, while learning and while teaching movement, what's the difference you've seen in the way people perceive dance, especially comparing Europe, because you've lived